Hello YouTube and welcome to NHORCs. My name's Charlie. I go by NH Operator online. Today we will be kicking off a build series on the Axial Racing Capra 1.9 Unlimited Trail Buggy Builders Kit. This is my first build series, so if you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments below. As we go along, I'll feature each product I've chosen for this project and some discussion as to why I have chosen it. You will be able to find links to all of the products I am using in the description of the episode they are used in, as I will be breaking this up into a number of smaller videos. That way you can easily jump around to any particular section you need assistance with. I hope you enjoy watching this as much as I enjoy building this kit. Alright, so we're going to start out here with a bit of an unboxing, and we're going to get going on this project, and we're going to be following the order that the manual lists. So, we've got our nice, wonderful Capra Horizon Hobby box here. Some beautiful photos on it. If you need any of the standard details, you can find this on the Horizon Hobby website or on the Axial Racing website. So, let's get into it. I am excited for this build. So, we've got cage parts. I'm not going to need those yet, I don't think. We do have very conveniently labeled bags with each individual part in them. That looks like it's the body panels. We've got some more cage pieces here in bag G. We've got some plastic bead locks here. We are not going to be using these. We've got some nice Igenora bead locks with, all metal screws and everything like that, but will look far nicer than these plastic ones. It's nice they include them, but not a whole lot of use there. Alright, we've got axles. This is probably where we're going to be starting, I imagine. All kinds of little hardware. We've got all the links, looks like some servo mounts, ball ends, that kind of thing. Let's see, that looks like the skid plate and most of the transmission pieces. Bag E here. Drive shafts in bag F. And the other axle in bag A1. That's the front drive axle. And we've got our nice manual. Get this box out of the way. With our sticker sheet. All kinds of nice Axial stickers there. Alright, my first tip for any build is make sure you have one of these nice silicone builder's mats. This is meant for cell phone repair. It also doubles as a soldering mat. They are extremely useful for keeping small parts separate. They've got lots of little magnet bits to hold screws so you don't lose them. Very, very useful. I will put the link to this in the description. You can get all kinds of them on Amazon though. So the first thing we're going to be doing is building our ring and pinion gear, our front ring gear. So we need bag A1. I've got that right here. I always suggest that the first thing you do is lay all your parts out in a nice neat order off to the side of your workspace. That way you can see everything you've got, everything you need. Everything's in nice easy reach. Alright, we've got some thread locker and it looks like some black grease. I don't know if we're going to use these. I have much larger versions of thread locker and grease. Put those aside for now. Alright, so we need bag A1 right here, this guy. We've got a bunch of bearings. It looks like we have both shielded and unshielded bearings. If you've never seen the difference, you can see the shielded here has this nice little black guard around the edge, and the unsealed, you can see the bearings inside. Generally, you will use unsealed bearings deep inside where there's no risk of dust or dirt contamination. And sealed bearings will go places out near your wheels where there's a possibility for dirt to get in, because the shielding helps keep the dirt out. So one thing that is going to be very helpful on a build, sorry about that, on a build like this is going to be a set of digital calipers. This again is an Amazon set. I will put the link in the description. And you zero them out and it'll give you exact measurements. So I am looking for a 7 by 14 by 3.5 bearing, and it is unshielded, so it's probably this guy. Yep, that's 14 right there. And then 7 would be the inside diameter. Yep, just about. And then 3.5 is obviously the width. So we need that guy, and we need the screws, which appear to be elsewhere. Alright, hold on, let me find the screws. Alright, I found the bag with the screws. I'd put it off to the side. So I will note that, as in the product description, I will be using RC Screws stainless steel kit here. I'm only going to be using these on places where there's a chance water or salt water, if I'm running on the beach, may get to. So the parts inside of the transmission, I'm not going to be using these on. Those are going to be covered in grease and tucked right away. So, getting started on this front ring gear and locker assembly. We've got this guy right here. We need the 6 inner bolts, and actually this is going to get, so this is this piece right here. Sorry, I'm following along. Oops, sorry about that. So what I like to do is I always like to lay them out exactly as they are pictured, to help make sure I'm doing everything exactly as intended. So this piece is going to go that way, and then we've got our other unshielded bearing over here. So we need those 6 screws. However, this piece we are going to be replacing with the Vanquish underdrive gear. I will insert a little product spotlight here. I have a pair of Vanquish products underdrive gears for both the front and rear axles. I've read online that the Capra is geared a little too tall, and I am really into that low, slow crawling. I'm not a rock bouncer guy. I'm not a trail chart guy. I do hard rock crawling. So I want that low gearing. I'm probably only going to put the underdrive in the rear initially to give myself a little overdrive in the front and determine if that's what I want to do. And if I want to go lower, I have another set I'll throw in the front axle to bring the overall ratio down. Real nice quality pieces here. So these are the screws that came with the Vanquish kit. We're going to make sure we use those. If I can get them out, they're sealed in this bag. That would explain why. Alright. So, we've got this laid out nice and clean. One of the things we are going to need is thread locker. Anywhere you've got metal to metal, you want thread locker. It does tell you this in the manual, thread lock, and they did provide with this nameless brand thread lock. I'm not going to use that. I have myself a nice big bottle of Loctite red, blue thread locker. Always make sure you shake this stuff. If you don't shake it, it doesn't work right. Alright, so we're going to start our assembly here. Make sure whenever you're using metal to metal, you use some Loctite. They did provide Loctite in the kit, however, I like the Loctite brand Loctite, so I'm going to use this instead. Make sure you give it a good shake before you do that. Additionally, get yourself a good set of hex drivers. You don't want to be stripping out tiny screws like this. The ones they give you in the kits are almost always terrible. So we're going to start assembling this here. You want to make sure, per the directions, you've got this going the right way. So the gears are going to face the single side, the side that doesn't have the little lip on it. So we're going to put that there. We're going to rotate those over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start one without thread locker to hold it together, and then I'll come back and put thread locker on this one once I finish. I'm going to line it up with that nice little vanquish arrow. That way we don't have any confusion about which one I have done. I'll leave that one sticking out a little bit. So shake this up. You don't need much of this stuff. Whoop, that's probably too much, to be honest. Grab myself a little towel here. Get some of that off. Alright. Be very careful when you're doing these small screws that you don't strip anything. These little ones strip very easily. And the last thing you want to do in a build is strip a screw and have to stop your build. I would also avoid using any power tools at this point. I generally don't use them at all. So one of the things you want to do, I didn't crank that down yet. I'm going to do a nice star pattern. Alright, my apologies. As I said, this is my first build series, and my camera, which I'm using a GoPro 10, overheated. I think because I was using this little light, this was throwing a lot of heat into the case. So we're going to try it without that. Alright, so continuing. I do realize that I said I was going to use the Vanquish gear here. I did not want to underdrive the front yet, though. I wanted to leave myself with a little front overdrive. So, I, off camera, while the camera was cooling down, took that out and put the stock one back on. So this is the standard gearing that comes with it. I've also put Loctite on that one. I said I was going to Loctite, so we're going to keep going here. One of the things you want to do whenever you're doing something that has a star pattern like this, right, we've got 6 screws, is that we want to tighten them down in a star pattern. So I'm getting them all pretty close down, but I'm not really cranking on them yet as we don't have them all in. Alright, so we're putting the last one in here. What we're going to do is we're going to go across the star. We're basically going to make a star, and we're going to tighten them down. So I'm going to start with the one I'm in. Give that. Oh no, I didn't put Loctite on a bunch of those. Well, I'm going to go back and put Loctite on all of these off camera, and then I'm going to tighten them up in a star. So I'm going to do that one, then 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 that one. We will be right back once I fix that, because I forgot to put Loctite on it. Alright, I've corrected that little snafu with the Loctite. I've got these all in. They're all nice and snug. I've gone back and cleaned up any excess Loctite. I will hopefully get faster at doing this and make a few less unforced errors here as we go along. So the next part, we're going to put these unshielded bearings on, which according to the picture, it does not appear to matter which way they go. So we'll pop both of these on. There's no shielding on one side or the other. Sometimes you'll have shielding on only one side or the other. These are unshielded on both. So that part is done. So I've got all the parts laid out for our next step, which is bag A2 here. We're assembling the diff and the front axle. So this is the first place we're going to use an option part here that I've chosen to replace. We will cut into that right here. This is a Trial front diff cover made of brass. This is a very nice piece. I have one of these on my TRX4 comp crawler build. This is black, so it looks pretty good other than those nice brass edges, and it helps add a good chunk of weight up front, unsprung, to help keep that nose down on steep ascents. Okay, as you can see, we've got our Trail front diff cover versus the one that comes with it, so it is a good bit thicker, but you know, the trade-offs are worth it. So we're not going to be using this piece. Put that aside in our bucket of parts that I'm not using. We've got our finished gears here. So this is pretty simple. We take this guy, make sure you orient this correctly. Again, I've laid out this just as they have in the picture. Drop that guy in there. Spins nice and freely. That's good. Now, put this in. Sorry, I've got a fly here buzzing around. Alright, so we got to press this bearing in. This is a shielded bearing. Alright, that goes in nice and easy, and then this smaller bearing goes in the top. Right there, nice and easy. Alright, so this guy goes this way with the hole up towards the top. I'm going to slot that in like so. Nice and smooth, you can see it in there. I'm going to test fit here before we do anything else. So that looks pretty good. You turn it. Whoop, fly. That feels like it's turning pretty smoothly for no grease. So we're going to pop this back out. Now this is a place where it wants you to use black grease. It did come with some right here, but I have my own that I'm going to use, which is right here. It's some Maxima Racing Oils waterproof grease for pretty much just, you know, actual cars and things like that. You know, it's pretty new. So we're going to apply this. I'll get myself a toothpick. And I'm going to layer this stuff up in here. You could use your fingers if you really wanted to, but I do not want to do that. So I'm going to thoroughly coat these gears. I know I've seen some people who will just fill this entire void with grease. I don't think that is necessary at all. This is a locked diff. So we simply don't need that much. Not to say I'm going to use none, but or you know, a little bit, but all right, get that in there, and then I'm going to put a little bit on this side as well. Now that this is, since this half is metal, and normally it's plastic, I am going to give this part a decent coating. That way if there is any incidental contact, it shouldn't do any damage. Alright. So we're going to drop this back in. That looks pretty good. Turning it. Oh yeah, now that's smoothing up as that grease gets around. Feeling a lot better. Alright, so now we got to put some screws in. These are the first of the stainless screws from the kit. Like I said, I'm using stainless as these are visible from the outside. You can see they're nice silver steel versus the black, you know, standard steel. Now these, although they're going through a metal piece, they're going into plastic, so I don't need thread locker with this. And again, with pretty much everything, I go till it's snug, and then I tighten in a cross pattern. Those feel like they're going in nice and smooth. You know, you obviously want to be careful anytime you're putting screws into plastic, as the plastic can really strip out easily, and then you are out of luck and needing to get a new axle housing in this case. So I'm going to go till, you know, I'm doing 2-finger pressure here, as you can see. I can't really go much further there. I'm going to go across. I'm going to do the same thing. 2-finger pressure. Can't go any further. Jump to this side. Feels pretty good. And that one has a little ways to go. Good. Alright, that's still sounding pretty good in there. I may have some compatibility issues. I have some skid plates that are going to go on here, and I'm wondering if they're going to fit this. Alright, so that's done. Let's see what we're doing next. Next up, we are working on the portal knuckles. So I've got them laid out. I'm doing this top one first. This top one first right here. I've got it laid out as it is in the manual to make it nice and simple. One of the things I would suggest, I would state as a tip, is that although you can use a pair of calipers to identify your bolts and nuts, these do actually appear to be printed to scale now. I know in earlier versions of this kit, these were not to scale, but they are now. So if you look at this 10 by 15 by 4, you can just simply, oh, my hand's in the way, you can simply place it on the photo to determine if that's the one you need, and it is lined up, and that appears to be the case with pretty much everything, including the screws, which is very nice. Whoop, if you don't drop them. Including the screws. So that's very good. In addition, we are doing another one of our option parts here. I'm using these Treel inner portal covers made of brass, and I'll insert a little overview of why I'm doing that right here. To go along with the Treel front diff cover, we've got a set of Treel inner portal covers made of brass. Same finish, nice black with the brass edges, and these are going to do the same thing that Treel front diff cover does, and that's going to help add some nice unsprung weight way up front to help keep this rig from rolling over backwards on the steeper ascents. So you've got your Treel model number here if you want it, and again, we will have links to all of these in the description. Okay, so these are replacing the black plastic pieces. You know, just it's the same thing. It's a little thicker overall, but it's made of brass, so it's nice and heavy up front. So we don't need this. Put that off to the side, and we will get at it here. So take our portal, and we are going to slot these bearings in nice and clean and smooth. That's what we like to feel. Hopefully this is the same way. One of the things you need to be careful of when putting bearings is to make sure they are seating level. This one does not want to go. You want to try to push on both the inner and outer rings if you need to push. Too big. This does not want to go. Let me see if I can. See, like, if I use a Sharpie, it's going to push the inner ring out, so I don't want to use that. Just a moment, I'm going to go get something. I'll show you a trick. Alright, so if you're having problems getting a bearing in, go get yourself a socket. That's the right size. Use the end that you attach to the driver, not the end you put on the nut. You should be able to slot that in and help get that in there. It's still not wanting to go. Might need to seat this with a little bit of grease, which isn't ideal. I'm going to back it out if I can. Alright, we've gotten that out, kind of. You need to be careful when working with brass because it's softer than almost all of your tools are going to be. Alright, we've gotten that out, so I'm just going to take a very tiny dab of grease. You don't want a lot because you do want the outside to stay put. And we're going to just lightly coat that outside edge just a smidge. And we're going to try to reseat this now. Get that grease off my fingers. You're going to feel them go in side to side. Sometimes that's okay if they continue to move. This one does not want to go. Sometimes you do need a little bit of force. I have a nice little rubber hammer here. I'm going to gently tap. What is that? Alright, we're almost there. That did help a good bit. I'm not doing hard strikes here. In fact, my finger is under the brass to keep it level. So that now looks like we were pretty level. You can look at it from the other side and try to see if you've got any gap. I think I've got a little bit. Alright, that feels smooth on the inside, so I'm going to call that good. Those two are in. Get my hammer out of the way. Get my socket out of the way. Alright. Now we've got that in. We've got our little stub axle here. So we need this little pin. These pins can certainly be tricky. Want that little pin centered because that's going to key into this part of the gear next. So we're going to drop that over. It doesn't look like it. 90-degree offset, so you can see it's vertical on this side and horizontal on the other. It's probably just a strength thing. Drop that over our stub axle. Okay, yep, that's keyed in, good. Now we have the portal gear. How are we going to drop this in without having it fall out? That's going to be interesting. Now we got to black grease all of this. Put the bearings in the opposite side. This is the plastic side, so this is should be particularly easy. Yep, pop right in, no problem, and that's going to slot over there. So we're going to slot that in after, but we have to grease this. I'm also somewhat concerned with how big of a gap we have on that side. We will see how it goes. Alright, so we need a bunch of grease. Kind of coat these gears, because portals are something where you likely will end up with some wear. So I'm going to put some in this side. I'm not going to focus too much on that smaller gear because this thing is coated, and that will transfer all the grease we need over to the smaller gear after. And again, this is the black grease in the manual. I'm using a different grease because I'm picky. We have a lot of big equipment here, and we use a lot of this grease and some of that other equipment. So, alright, we're gonna drop that guy back in there. A little harder to do when you can't see. And then this whole thing screws together. Seat that right over. Hopefully. Okay. So I am going into metal here. So I need the Loctite again. I always give it a little shake when I pick it up, just to make sure. Normally, if you're doing this without the Trial portal covers, you wouldn't need Loctite on this piece because you'd be going into plastic. But I want these Trial covers, so I need Loctite. Alright, and that's one done. I'm going to do the other one off camera because there's no reason to bore you guys with that. We're installing the portal the portal hubs into the Axel now. I do have a critique of this RC Screws kit that I am using. It does not have stainless versions of these little collared Allens that you use to install the portals onto the Axel, which is very unfortunate because that's definitely a part that sees a lot of water. I may have to try to find some stainless versions of those. I had to dump the whole kit out up here, as you can see, looking around for them. Couldn't find them. They're just not here. So we'll be using the stock hardware. This should be pretty simple though. So again, I've got it laid out all as it is in the picture. It makes it as simple as possible. Make sure you're orienting everything correctly. If you put your portals on the wrong sides, you're going to be backing up and taking all your screws out and doing it again. So we're going to start on this side. So we've got a little bearing that gets pressed right into there. And actually, we're gonna do this on both sides. Next, we've got our axle with its nice little universal joint on it. It's a very nice little universal. We have to slot this in. We should feel it key. As you can see, it's square-ish on the end, or kind of rectangular. So if you spin it gently, you should, that might have been it. You're looking for it to sit a whole lot deeper than that. There it goes. Yeah. So you just kind of push and twist at the same time. I'm going to leave the other one out because I'm pretty sure this will fall out if I back it off. So get your portal axles oriented correctly. We're gonna, hey, I have them backwards. That exact thing I was telling you, be careful of. You gotta be careful of it. Wait, do I have them backwards? Oh, right, they're the inner hubs. Yeah, so, yeah, as in the picture, has the drive going out the back and the flanges coming towards you. So, this is gonna be a little tricky. We gotta seat that gear properly. So this is a square spline. This is going to align that too, because that moves around in there, which is kind of a strange way to do it. I thought this might be a little tricky. Maybe I should have put the other end in first. Apologies for the barking dog in the background. Oh, I see. So when you get this in, you got to go through that. You got to go through the gear, and then you also have to go through the bearing behind it, which is a little more tricky. There it goes. All right, see, that seated in much deeper than before. We're spinning. You can see the reduction on the output shaft. So we're going to hold that all together. And now we're going to try to line this up. Oh, there it goes. There we go. Now that's sitting in nice and close. You can see we're lined up. Take one of these guys. Now I am going into metal because I have the optional brass part. So I put a little bit of Loctite on there. You can see we've got good articulation, good range of movement, and when we spin our output shaft, or when we spin our axle over here, we can see the output shaft turns nice and smoothly. Got a little bit of crunching going on in there, but the grease needs to work its way around. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put the other one on, and we'll come right back. Alright, so I've got the other one on. You can see they're both on. They both have pretty good play. They look real nice with that black and gold aesthetic. It's very up my alley. The plastic covers here don't look as good, but they'll be hidden behind the tires anyway, so that doesn't matter. And as you can see, when I spin one side, both the output shaft in the middle spins, and you might not be able to see that on camera. Oh, there it is. The output rod on the other end spins as well. So this is how it is supposed to look. Very hefty with all this brass on it. And that is the front axle. Our next step is to assemble the rear axle, which is effectively the same as this first process. I will jump in. I'm going to do most of it off camera. I'll jump in anywhere there's some if I see any significant differences, but I think it's pretty much the same. Alright, so I've got this laid out. I'm actually going to time lapse it for you guys. And I would like to point out that as this is the rear, this is where I am going to be using that Vanquish underdrive gear. I have a second one for the front, but I want a little bit of overdrive effect while still slowing the back down. So I'll put in a little shot of these Vanquish parts in, and I'm going to get to time lapsing. I'll slow it down if I hit anything unusual and let you know about it. Okay, so this part is actually a little bit tricky. So I'm trying to put the rear diff cover housing on, and it does not want to go. Now I think it's because of the gear mesh on the two. So I think you have to spin it as you're trying to do it, kind of rock it in back and forth. There's some pretty tight tolerances here, and I'm kind of surprised they're so close. Once this goes on, it is... there it goes. Alright. There we go. We are in. I've used a bunch of grease. This feels good. That's the underdrive gear. Speaking of this underdrive gear, I believe this is about 9.5% reduction over the one that was in it. So I'm going to end up with 9.5% overdrive in the front. Back to the time lapse. Almost forgot. So I have, this is part of my skid plate set. And so this unit is going to have full stainless steel skid plates. So this is the point that you You don't need to put them on now, but it's a hell of a lot easier because basically they go under these two bolts. I'm going to have to do it to the front one too. So you can usually get by, I've done this for my TRX4, by backing one off about that much and then removing the other. You can do this in place, actually on this rig, because there's so little kind of stuff going on underneath. It's probably relatively simple, but we're going to go ahead and put them on now, since it's just easier. And we'll also find out if they fit on the front, and I don't think it's going to, because of that that Trial cover, diff cover that I'm putting on. So, but we're gonna try. All right, yeah. So that fits in nice and easy. Just slot that back in. This is something you can do if you're just looking to install skid plates, that you can do, you know, on a ready to run with a, you know, removing 2 screws, pretty much. Like, you really don't need much to put these on and off. I'm gonna be real upset though if I can't put one on the front, because I really like these. They let you slide over stuff a hell of a lot easier because it's metal than sliding over with the plastic. And I'm crooked, I just realized. So my set for the TRX4 was a little had a bit tighter tolerances. This can move a little bit. It looks like side to side. So when you put it on, you got to make sure you are centered. Yeah, see, there's the slide right there. Which on the back doesn't really matter, but it's got these little teeth on it. And I want them as far that way as we can. Just gonna hold it there and crank it down. No Loctite needed on this one because I'm not going into any brass. And that should do it. Alright, I'm going to put the, let's see if we can put that on this one. I'm just going to assume that the answer is no without some modifications here. Yeah, that's not going to work, unfortunately, because of the increased width. I might be able to do some modifications to this, or maybe I can grind a little bit off of that to make it work. But I'm definitely going to have to bend this. So I will do that later. We'll come back to that. Back to the time lapse. Alright, sorry about that. It looks like I lost the back third or so of the time lapse because my camera overheated again. GoPros are really meant to be used outside and moving, not in 80-ish degree stagnant air in someone's garage. I'm going to have to come up with a fan solution of some kind, but here's the rear axle done. It's all functional. You spin. So this one is interesting. So with that reduction, I can actually barely move the system from this side. But if you spin this side, it spins nice and easy. and you can see those nice and slow around. So that is a nice big, well, it's about like 10% drive reduction, but it's very nice. So that's the axles done. That may be the end of this video. We will see how long it comes out in post. So the next thing it wants us to do is shocks. So I am going to skip over this part for now, as I am putting desert lizards in, and I don't particularly want to build them at the moment. So we're going to just move on from those and build some steering links. Alright, so I was reading the instructions for the next section, which is the steering links, and if I want this on, I kind of need to do it now. So I went out and I was trying to grind it down to make it fit, but without grinding the brass off, which would look really bad, there's no way I could do it. So I'm going to do something that future me will hate myself for, and current me does not care. And that is, I am just going to glue this piece on like so. I bent it out a little bit so it fits better, because the this piece is just substantially wider than the stock one. The stock piece, if you look at it, is much thinner. It's supposed to sit there like that, much thinner. So I'm just going to glue this on with a couple dabs of super glue and pray that it holds. If it falls off, it falls off. I'll be in the same position I was, but it fits pretty good on there. So we're just gonna go along and do that for now, and I can always pop it off if I have to, if I have any super glue, because this one feels like it may be done. So we're gonna do that and just glue it on, and then we're gonna move on to the next part. So we got glue flowing. It's nice, smooth, clean aluminum on both sides, or aluminum to nylon. So I think it'll be okay. This is really probably not what you should do, but I am doing it anyway. So I'm just gonna hold that in place for a little bit. Some good solid pressure, and let that set, and we'll see how that works. I can always screwdriver it off. Yeah, it's not ideal. I really want the skid plate on there, and I don't see a way of doing it with this trail plate. So keep that in mind. If you want this trail front diff, you are not going to be able to use the skid plates from Amazon. So, or probably any of them. I mean, the geometry is just a lot different. So.